Hi, my name is Frederick Gavasep. I intend with this short video clip to respond to allegations made in an article titled "Swapo alleges a massive spy network in its ranks." This article was published in the Namibian on Friday, February 21st, 1986. It basically talks about a media briefing that was done in London by two well-known stalwarts of Swapo, comrades Theoben Gurirap and Hidibo Hamtenya. At this briefing, these two comrades played videos in which a couple of Swapo detainees are interviewed. The purpose of this media briefing was to justify the arrest, torture, and incarceration in dungeons of so-called spies and the disappearance of some of them. These dungeons became known as the Lubango dungeons. Now, the reason I am reacting to this article 39 years after it was published is because I came across it just recently. And the reason why I never saw this article before is very simple. It is because when the article was written, I had already been languishing in the Swapo dungeons as a so-called enemy spy for about 2 years. I was rounded up in March of 1984. This article was published in 1986, about 2 years after I was arrested. I was released and returned to Namibia in 1989. By that time, this article was 3 years old and I believe was already archived. That is the simple reason why I never saw this before. I will focus my reaction at a section that caught my eye when I read through this article. But before I do so, let me set the stage for you. I left Namibia in March 1978 at the age of 17. I was trained at the Hanyego Training Center north of Lubango a couple of months after my arrival in Angola. I then became an anti-aircraft gun instructor and trained 3 intakes before I was chosen to help complete the defense headquarters, which was at the time under construction in complete secrecy. Once we completed the defense headquarters, I was instructed to set up the operations office, which I did successfully. I then worked in the operations office until shortly before the mass arrests of the 1984 spy drama. Note that my work in the operations office entailed plotting combat actions between our forces and the enemy inside Angola. This is because we had military maps only of the Angolan side. My work entirely depended on information sent to us from the fronts and sometimes from the operational headquarters. That shortly is the background. Now let's get back to the article. Just a quick reminder before I read the relevant part of the article. The purpose of the London media briefing was to justify the arrest, torture, and detention of so-called South African spies and the disappearance of some of them. I shall put the emphasis on the word justify. Now, the part of the article that I singled out reads as follows. It is probable that the network was detected by tracing the origin of a highly specialized Swapo military map. Somehow, a copy of this map found its way to Swapo headquarters in Angola. Suspected Swapo staff were asked to draw a map to similar specifications, and the result was an exact copy of the much-traveled original. The map maker was questioned, and the trail led to his superior, one of the persons viewed on the videotape. Okay, that is the gist of Swapo's allegation around the so-called massive spy network in its ranks. I shall first address the specialized military map copying part. What I understand with this allegation is that Swapo uncovered a so-called agent whose exact copying of a mysterious specialized military map under interrogation helped them detect a whole spy network. So, in other words, the spy network would probably not have been detected had it not been for tracing the origin of the mysterious roaming specialized military map to this person, right? The map on display here very closely resembles the Angolan maps we used. The only aspects missing from this map are the alphanumeric grid numbers, the sheet number, the sheet name, the elevation frequency of the contour lines, and the names of the areas and locales spelled in Portuguese. Now, during interrogation, you would be given an A4 size paper to write on or to draw on. And an A4 size blank paper compared to a map like this one would be about 9 times smaller. Now, imagine copying everything that is on this map, including the military situational information, onto an A4 size paper and creating an exact copy of it from memory. Add to this complexity the fact that you are being tortured and interrogated. Just imagine the anxiety, the tension, the stress that you are undergoing during that time. Would you still be able to recreate a specialized map under those conditions? I don't know about you, but it is really very, very hard for me to believe anything like that. Even if you were to omit the topographic elements such as roads, rivers, vegetated areas, names of places, etc., it will still be quite a challenge to arrive at an exact copy of the situational information alone. Take a good look at this situational information and try to reproduce it without taking a peep at the original. Note, by the way, that the situational information in and by itself does not constitute a map because there are no reference elements in it. Nevertheless, let's assume for a moment that it is possible for someone to make an exact copy under interrogation on an A4 size paper. And most importantly, do so from memory with nothing to visually assist the copying process. And let's go back to the claim that was made by comrades Hidupo Hamtenya and Theo Ben Gurirab. The premise of their claim is that the person who, amidst a relentless torture and interrogation, created an exact copy, if such a thing is possible at all, must be the same person who created the map that they say was circulating earlier and reached the Swapo headquarters in Luanda. This, in my humble opinion, is equivalent to saying a painter who paints an exact copy of an existing painting must be the same person who painted the original copy thereof. The premise is shaky. It is illogical. Now, if the premise is so illogical upon which these comrades built this map story, what is to say about the claim that the spy network was detected by tracing its so-called origin? Very questionable, isn't it? It is so questionable that it throws into doubt the detection of the whole spy network as they claim in this article. In part 2 of my reaction, I shall explain where the mapmaker's spin on this whole story might have come from. Until then, thank you for listening. See you soon.